welcome to Weekly Reddit. In today's episode of r/Entitled Parents, the Demon Barn Cat. Do not touch. It's basically my wedding. The Demon Barn Cat. Do not touch. So this the story of Midnight the Barn Cat, the entitled child and the entitled parent. As a warning, there is mention of blood. If you don't want to read it, please don't. There's a TLDR at the bottom too. This was one of the stories I wanted to post but was unsure of where to post it. An uncle of mine reminded me about this story, so here we go. Cast: Uncle Bobby managed the horse barn, myself, Midnight, Demon Cat, entitled child and entitled mom. To set the stage for this story, I'll describe a bit of the property I grew up on. We rented horse stalls and pasture spots to people who wanted to board their horses with us. We taught lessons and hosted a few events as well on the property. There were a few signs on the property that said never bother the barn cats. To describe most of our barn cats, they are hunters. These are not the friendly house cats I have today. These are feral cats we reached an understanding with. These cats live in the barn, get access to clean water and can hunt to their heart's content. With the grain silos, the hay barn and the gardens, we had an abundance of rodents. If one of them gets hurt where we could actually get close enough to catch the feline and take it to the vet, we'd get them fixed and vaccinated. In order for the people they lived alongside to get close, these cats had to be knocking on death's door. There were several barn cats that lived on the property and they all had names and a rank. Birdie was a brown tabby who enjoyed hunting birds more than he liked hunting mice and rats. Fine with us. He kept the pigeons and other annoying birds from nesting in the rafters and pooping all over the hay. He was a level 2. The ranks went from 1 to 10 and only 2 cats have ever hit rank 10, Midnight and Killer. Midnight is the main focus of this story, so let's get right on into it. She, like many of the barn cats, seemed to appear overnight as a new face in the barn's day-to-day life. People would abandon cats near the property, some we could rehome but not Midnight. This was not the type of cat you picked up and hugged. I need to stress that so much. Midnight was beautiful with medium-length black fur and the prettiest blue eyes you can imagine. Again, this was not a cat able to be held and coddled. When I was around 9 years old, I witnessed one of the new dogs my brother had adopted chase after this cat. Midnight ran, flipped herself onto her back, and then the dog was on her. I ran towards the bear, very worried for Midnight. This was our top hunter of all types of vermin. When I reached the bear, there was blood all over the place and I thought for sure Midnight was gone. Then she shot out from the other side of the dog, bounded up to the top of the hay pile and started to lick her foreleg. I looked at the dog again, a large Mastiff lab mutt who was shaking where he stood. He was completely shredded. He needed 197 stitches to put himself together again, and he never even barked at another cat so long as he lived. Midnight was fine. She was fine when she killed a coyote. She was fine when she fought a small flock of crows. She was fine when a group of ravens attacked her. This cat could be there 1 second and gone the next. She was quick, clever and knew every hiding spot in the entire barn. She could jump in and out of horse stalls with ease and balance on the beams above the stalls. She dealt with threats to her safety with knowledge that was far too clever for a cat sometimes. Well, as many people do, one girl decided to ignore the warnings given verbally and the written signs. She was 13 years old and she and her mother both boarded their horses with us. She knew better than us because she had taken in a stray kitten and it was friendly towards her. She knew how to tame Midnight too. I, a 14-year-old now, tried to repeatedly tell her to not try and pet Midnight. She and her mother repeatedly tried to catch Midnight, to take her home and give her a better place to live, and they repeatedly failed. Until one faithful day that I think Midnight decided enough was enough. She had been chased around by this pair for over 2 weeks. despite the repeated warnings from myself, my brothers and my Uncle Bobby. They went into the barn to get their water bottles filled for a trail ride, and then we heard a horrible scream, followed by another horrible scream, and then the two voices kept screaming. I had dismounted at the first scream and ran into the barn to see what had happened and found the pair on their knees. The water bottles were forgotten and they were both holding their hands as blood welled out between their fingers. I asked what happened and the daughter screamed at me that she'd just tried to pet Midnight. It wasn't anything bad. She just wanted to pet her. Well, I had to deal with the pair and took them to get their hands bandaged. I was curious how bad the cuts were to cause so much blood. After rinsing off their hands under cold water, I got to see why they were crying so hard. On the child's hand I could see muscle and bone in the middle of her palm. The mother's hand was no better. I cleaned them, disinfected them, and then Uncle Bobby did a basic wrap on both of them. The mother drove her daughter off to the ER after cursing at us for having such a cat in the barn. We reviewed the barn tape and saw what happened. The two went in to fill up their water bottles and then spotted Midnight stalking a mouse in the straw of a stall. The mother and daughter went into the stall and the mother closed most of the gate, blocking the rest with her body. She waved her daughter on to go get Midnight, who had turned to look at them. Mouse forgotten. She hissed at the pair and lashed her tail. Usually if she gets locked in a stall, Midnight will just jump up the back wall and to the loft to get away. Not this time. The girl did not go slow. She rushed at Midnight to try and pet her, and Midnight curled around her arm for a blurry moment on the video and then went to the same corner. The mother rushed forward to kick at Midnight and up her leg Midnight went. She swatted at her and again, Midnight went for the hand. She swung herself up and then out the stall via the feeder. The mother charged after the cat with her daughter, both running after the cat. I had seen Midnight bait predators before, and that's just what she did here. She laid back on the hay as they reached for her and she proceeded to completely shred their hands with steel-sharp claws. The two screamed and fell back clutching their hands, and I had come inside. So now we knew what happened. Uncle Bobby had the sense of mind to copy that part of the video down and wait for the mother to return. It didn't take long. She came back the next day with bills for the hospital visit for her and her daughter and a threat to put that cat down immediately. I at the time was grooming both of their horses, listening in as this woman shouted at Uncle Bobby. Uncle Bobby had ordered me to get the horses looking good and fully ready to go. You have to put that demon down. She did so much damage to my daughter and I. How dare you have such a wild creature around my horses all the time? What if she attacks the horses? The entitled mother shrieked as she waved her bandaged hand in Uncle Bobby's face. How many times did we tell you and your kid to not try and pet Midnight? We have what you both did on tape. She's a barn cat, she ain't the kind of cat you pick up and cuddle. I've told you that. He said as the woman laughed for some reason. I'm going to sue you for all you're worth. I'll teach you for having such a dangerous cat around. The woman snapped as Uncle Bobby whistled. Oi! Bring out Tucker and Barnes. He called back into the barn. I had done what Uncle Bobby had asked and put all of the things this woman owned on the horses she owned. The saddles, the tack, everything was on the horses. What are you doing with my horses? I didn't give permission for you to exercise them when I'm not here. The woman snapped as I led both the horses out. We aren't exercising them, we're turning them over to you. Your stall rental is over since you decided to sue us. Here, we can't have anything of yours on the property anymore, Uncle Bobby said as calm as he took the leads from me and held them out to the woman. I could see the gears suddenly spinning in this woman's head. A lot of the stall rentals around us were easily double what we charged, most didn't have access to the training grounds for free or care of horse included. That meant feeding, watering, cleaning the stalls, riding on the property elsewhere all cost extra, or you had to come out and do it for your horse every day. Let's be reasonable, Bobby. All you need to do to keep my business is to get rid of that cat," she snapped. "Why would I get rid of something that's useful when I could get rid of dead weight? Take your horses, your gear, and get off of the property," he said calmly, looking at her with the look the family dubbed the good as dead look. The woman looked back at her car and then at her horses. "I can't take them. I don't have any way to get them to somewhere else right now." Uncle Bobby just shook his head and told her to figure it out. She tried to attack an animal on the property that she had been told not to mess with, threatened to sue us, and now this was her issue to figure out. She pleaded with Uncle Bobby to let her keep boarding the horses here, explaining they couldn't afford anything else so close to town. Uncle Bobby was firm and cold towards her, not giving a single inch. He explained he couldn't trust her to listen to his word around a cat. How could he trust her around a horse? They went inside the barn office to talk for a while as I waited with the horses. When she came out, she was paying $50 per day that she boarded the horses with us. She needed to find new homes for them ASAP. She was out with a rented trailer the following day and begged my uncle to reconsider. He didn't. 4 months later, my uncle went to the horse auction and came back with 6 new trail horses. Tucker and Barnes were the first 2 he unloaded from the trailer and passed off to me. I never saw that woman again, but occasionally we would find animal traps set up around the property baited with cat food. We'd collect them, donate them to the animal shelter in our area, and after a few years they stopped showing up. Midnight stayed with us until she went grey in the muzzle. She walked off into the night and we never saw her or found any trace of her. Too long did not read. Entitled brat decides she knows best about barn cat. Gets herself and her mother scratched to hell. They lose horses shortly after. Hope you all enjoyed the story of the demon cat Midnight and the entitled mom losing her stall rentals. Uncle Bobby is another one I want to tell a few stories about, just like Aunt Rose. It's basically my wedding. So this is a story about my soul's mother that happened just over 8 years ago. My soul brought this up during a family Zoom call, to which one of my nieces immediately asked for me to write it up here. It's taken a few days since the call to get it all typed. I've ended up with a monster wall of text, but I tried to cut a lot of it out too. There is a long did not read at the bottom too. I hope you all enjoy this piece of family history. Cast for this will be myself, Alice, SIL, Helen, Alice's mother, RM, Ron, Alice's husband, and my brother, Fred, and George, 2 of my other brothers. To set the scene, the wedding was set to happen on a farm run by my Aunt Rose. This farm is set up to be photo ready for wedding and events that people wish to have there. It comes with a hefty price tag for a rental, and for her gift to Ron and Alice, Aunt Rose donated the venue and the on-site lodge for all of the guests. Her children donated their time to clean and set the venue up, her husband donated his cooking ability. Other family members provided the ingredients, and there wasn't a whole lot for the bride and groom to actually pay for. The wedding dress was made by Alice, her sister, and 2 of our cousins. The most expensive thing the pair purchased were the rings. Most people would be happy to spend so little for a wedding, but the mother of the bride was a problem from day one. She had to have her say in everything, just, no one listened. It wasn't her day, it was Alice's day. She got progressively more angry as the family went with Alice's choices and not her ideas. Alice got to design everything, including the wedding cake. Due to her own allergies, she did not want any coconut on her cake. Pretty straightforward request, right? She had plans for a beautiful naked cake decorated with berries and a very nature-based look. The family adored Alice, but it was very clear that without needing to say anything, we all tuned out Helen and her terrible demands. Alice had ordered sunflowers and an array of orange and yellow roses and other flowers. They arrived before the rehearsal dinner and were put in the walk-in fridge to keep them looking good for the following day. Helen got very emotional when she saw the flowers that night. Fred said he had a bad feeling in his gut when Helen went off just before the rehearsal started. He didn't get to stop her or catch her, but she'd gone into the kitchen and snapped the heads off of the sunflowers. Helen didn't want sunflowers in her daughter's wedding photos. To not stress out the bride or groom, Fred put a text out to the family that had supplied the flowers. He explained that he'd left the rehearsal about 6 minutes after Helen hadn't found the sunflowers all beheaded. The family member agreed to replace all of them and come over extra early before the wedding with the needed flowers. She also requested that he save the sunflower heads and they could do something with the beheaded ones on the dining tables for the reception. Crisis 1 averted. However, while Fred was dealing with the sunflowers, I was dealing with another crisis altogether. Helen was standing off to the side of the event after finishing the meal. She was on the phone, and like my brother, I found a feeling of wrongness in my gut, so I wanted to listen in. She was talking to her husband, Alice's stepfather, on the phone. She was saying what a great surprise this would be for Alice and how excited Alice would be to see her stepfather. I stepped into Helen's space and told her point blank if that man showed up he would be leaving with more holes than God intended. Helen scoffed off the threat until she saw the look in my eyes. She told her husband she would call him back before hanging up. She told me that she could invite her husband. After all, it was thanks to him Alice even met her future husband. She would be so thrilled to have him walk her down the aisle instead of Alice's own father. It was only right after all. Who wouldn't want someone who abused them so badly they ran away and got rescued by a stranger at their wedding? I looked over my shoulder and made eye contact with George. He sensed the brewing trouble and responded in the way only George ever responds with. He brought her a fruity, sweet drink and asked if there was a problem. She drank down the drink as she told him her woes of how I was so cruel to her. He patted her arm and took her off to the side where he proceeded to keep her glass very full. I went and warned my uncle to shut the gate prior to the wedding, and when he found what was going on, he insisted he would keep one of his sons by the front gate just in case. The party was winding down as the bride and groom separated for the evening. George kept filling up the woman's glass, talking to her as if he was the most sympathetic person to her woes. The drunker Helen got, the more she spilled. She admitted about the sunflowers because they were such an ugly flower and her daughter didn't know better. However, around drink 4, she admitted that she'd fixed the stupid cake she'd seen in the fridge. George acted like he hated the cake as well to get out what he could from her, as he found out this woman had wanted coconut cake. The thing her daughter was allergic to. Badly allergic to. Turned out she had bought a few tubs of coconut frosting from the store and spread it over the base cake layer. It was around 3 a.m. when this revelation came out. George kept piling her with drinks as he led her towards the room she was staying in. He told the family via a text to check the cake immediately. Once he got her into bed, with the plan to let her just sleep through the morning wedding, she blabbed about how bland the food had looked and she'd made it all better. Then she passed out without further explanation. All of the food was being inspected by the family as Aunt Rose, her husband and kids set to work with the siblings to fix everything. The cake needed to be remade. The poorly spread coconut frosting had completely ruined the cake. Family members were woken up while the bride, groom and wedding party were left alone to sleep. George said he would keep an eye on Helen and fix things with her husband. He was going to send the man somewhere completely different from the wedding venue. The family came together with 12 cars leaving the ranch to go home for various replacements. There was a berry hunt at 4 in the morning, new fish, new bread being made, a new order of steaks being tenderized and marinated along with a dozen other things. One of my cousins was digging up new sweet potatoes while his wife and son gathered fresh eggs. Cars came and went all night. I told Alice her mother was sleeping off a hangover while she was getting dressed for the day, and she accepted it rather quickly. She had been told by some of her family that she had to invite her. As she tugged her stockings up, She told me she couldn't believe her wedding was here. She was getting to marry her Prince Charming in Ron, and she was trying not to cry before getting her makeup done. Helen missed the wedding despite her sister and her other daughter trying to wake her up for it. I'm glad to say Alice was in the dark about what happened on her wedding day until she came back from her honeymoon. Who told her what Helen had done? Why Helen herself? Helen screamed at her daughter the first day they returned from the honeymoon and told her how disappointed she was with the wedding she slept through. She wanted Alice to dress in her wedding dress and take photographs with her mother and her stepfather. Ron put a stop to that real fast. No way was her stepfather ever coming near her again. Helen was blocked and Alice tried to figure out what all had happened at the event in those wee morning hours. We told her, with everyone coming forward with what they had done while the couple slept and rested for their wedding day. Alice thanked us all and Ron told everyone at the next family get-together that she couldn't understand how we'd been so calm about it. Aunt Rose told her that in a crisis you can't lose focus. Make a plan, follow through, and things will work out all right. Alice took that advice to heart. She's a wedding planner now, and she is a stonewall for brides against their mothers or any influence beside the husband. It is their day and that's it. Everyone else can shut up and listen to the bride and groom. Hope you all enjoyed. Too long did not read. Mill tries to fix her daughter's wedding choices. Gets so smashed she misses the wedding completely. Play stupid games. Win stupid prizes.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up with the best content from Reddit.